I think minimalist footwear, some types, is preferable to traditional shoes if you really have to wear footwear for whatever reason. Some minimalist footwear is not that good. I personally own a pair of Vibram 5 Fingers which I use when I'm hiking for cases where I encounter ground that's really too rocky or really too hot. I kind of object to minimalist footwear being called barefoot footwear or barefoot shoes because, you know, that's not what it is.
I think it's a good thing that it exists, definitely, for people who want to wear shoes or have to wear shoes but don't want to deal with the negative side effects of wearing sort of traditional footwear. And some of them are very nice, like I like the look of the 5 Fingers, I think they look just like gloves, and I like the look of Lems, like especially their boots look like they'd be really practical if you're doing something where you want to protect your feet from like dropping things and stuff. I don't own any yet. I'm hoping, if I can afford it, to get some this winter in case there's any cold days where I absolutely can't cope, and have a pair in for wearing to gigs. But, big but here, I do not think they should be marketed as barefoot shoes because there isn't really a substitute for going barefoot. The problem with it, to me, is that it's cashing in on people's fear of going barefoot a lot of the time. People read about, you know, things like barefoot running, and they read about, you know, the benefits of going barefoot. There are a lot of people who are starting to think of the barefoot lifestyle as healthier. But people think, you know, you can't actually go barefoot. You must need to buy something. You need to buy gear to go barefoot with. You can go barefoot. You were born barefoot. You can just get out your house and go barefoot. And I think a lot of these minimalist shoe companies are kind of cashing in on people who aren't ready for that. So I think minimalist shoes, called minimalist shoes, for people who actually need or very much like shoes is fine. But they're no substitute for going barefoot, and I don't think they should be called that.
When I wanted to go more publicly barefoot, I thought I'd do it secretly and furtively, as is my wont, by buying a pair of Vivo Barefoot Evos, I think they were, because they were on offer. And I hate them. They're minimal compared to standard tennis shoes, but they don't feel comfortable in any way.
And they stink.
They stink terribly. They make my feet cold for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe it's the material they're made from. And I very, very rarely wear them.
You know, sometimes it's necessary. I do wear my Vibrams occasionally, mostly when I'm biking, just like in places where I do find that I want a bit more protection, but they aren't a replacement for being barefoot. Your feet get smelly in all of them. My feet sweat a lot, and so it's a problem with that. And you don't get the same feeling. You don't get to feel the air, you don't get to feel the ground, all the gravel, the soft, you know, really soft grass or rough wood, you know, roots walking on. You lose all of that, and so obviously I prefer being barefoot. I do have Lems shoes, which I wear in my lab because I need closed-toed shoes.
I think if you're going to have to wear shoes, why not? But if you want to know what it's like to go barefoot, then those aren't going to tell you anything new. No different really than any other kind of shoe. But if people want to wear shoes and they want to wear shoes that look like bare feet and they think it's a nice fashion thing, then yeah, go for it. They're shoes. They're no worse than any other kind of shoes.
Well, the strangers one is actually pretty funny. I get a lot of comments, mostly not mean ones, some sort of snarky ones, which I ignore. I get things like nice kicks and, hey, did you forget your shoes today? And I'm like, yeah, I tend to forget my shoes every day. Isn't that funny? My friends kind of pointed out, and they probably think I'm really weird, to be honest, but they get along with it. I have one friend that actually loves it and is so happy every time she sees me barefoot because it just it makes her laugh. My family was probably a little lenient at first. My mom, she kind of thought it was weird and was worried about my safety at first, but afterwards, you know, I'd go over to a friend's and a friend would be like, oh my gosh, you're barefoot? And my mom would almost be proud. She'd defend me and promote me, and it's actually pretty cool. So.
Well, my family's very supportive, obviously. It'd be very hard to be a barefooter without having a supportive family. Strangers, well, screw strangers, who gives a shit what they think, but they do tend to stare, and it's very funny if somebody stops and stares and doesn't know what to say, to engage them in conversation, to force them to speak to the weirdo. I like to do that. And say, good morning, how are you? Family, well, my dad thinks I should have been born in Tahiti. My mother, I think, would have loved to have been a barefooter herself. She's very free with her feet. She's a bit more conformist than that, so you don't often see her without some form of shoes on. So generally speaking, family are great. Family even enjoy it sometimes themselves, but not to the same extent as I do. And Dara, obviously, is my only full-time barefoot companion.
it'll go one of two ways generally. It'll either be, oh wow, that's really, really cool, I could never do that, but I really like that you're doing your own thing. Or it goes, oh, how does that work? And then a series of questions and an interesting conversation, which I'm happy to have as many times with as many different people as it takes, because I'm quite happy to talk about it. And then it comes out the same way. It's just like, cool, you're doing your own thing, that's great. So yeah, sometimes you do get negative reactions from people who don't know you, but then you forget them pretty quickly, and they're really easy to avoid. You'll always get a bit of resistance from some close people, usually family members that are stuck with you and you're stuck with them. But like anything else of family, it all evens out over time.
Well, friends will sometimes ask questions or be kind of puzzled by it, and I explain why I like to do it. Some get it right away, some need a little more persuasion or time to get used to it. Strangers, you'll get the look from strangers, and there's nothing you can do but to basically act like there's nothing wrong. If they ask you a question, if it's a friendly question, it's similar to when a friend asks you a question. I won't really tolerate hostile questions from strangers. I'll tell them it's none of your business. Relatives, this is also similar to friends.
All my people who I'm close to have been very positive. My parents have been fine with it. My mum has said, you know, she agrees that shoes are a bad thing, particularly for children, and she wishes that it was more accepted to go barefoot. My husband doesn't really get it, doesn't like going barefoot himself, but is absolutely fine with me doing it. You know, strangers are the ones where you're going to get more negative reactions, I think. So yeah, I've had negative comments from strangers, but nothing particularly bad. Usually it's more sort of general hostility to things that they don't understand, rather than actively having a problem with my feet. So people being like, oh, where's your shoes in the street and stuff like that, you know, they're just doing the normal scared human thing of something is different and I don't know how to deal with that. I've had a lot of people sort of come up to me like maybe genuinely concerned or maybe just fake concerned and trying to kind of put a damper on my life. What if there's used needles? I've never seen a used needle in Newcastle in my life. But a lot of the time what sounds like a negative comment, when you actually if you respond to someone seriously, you'll find it is genuine curiosity. And sometimes people sort of do actually want to learn, which is cool. But you will experience negative comments, but just, you know, let it roll off you. These people, you know, strangers, they don't mean anything to you. Most of them you'll probably never see again.
I wish some other hikers stop and ask me, like, are you crazy? What are you doing?
Actually been quite detrimental, because in going barefoot I find myself coming up against nonsensical rules. You can't come in here barefoot because, and then a string of crap that everyone knows about.
Health and safety.
Health and safety, liability, hygiene, all of which are relatively easily disproved, but it's very hard to get through to the people with the mindset that that's the case. But what I'm starting to find is I'm seeing these stupid rules everywhere. I was working on a client site recently, and it's very common to as soon as you get on their premises, to have to put on a hard hat, safety boots, high visibility vest. This particular site also insisted on gloves. And somebody caught me walking across the site and said, "Where are your gloves, mate?" I said, "They're here in my pocket." He says, "You need to be wearing them." I says, "I'm not doing any work yet." He says, No, you need them on full time." So I suppose being aware of the silly rules for going barefoot have influenced me negatively in that respect. Whereas I would normally have previously just said, yeah, okay, I'll put my gloves on. I now think, well, who's made up this stupid rule and why? So in that respect, it's not great.
In some ways, it's made me more self-confident and more deliberate in my actions, because you have to be fairly strong-minded to go against quote-unquote societal norms here. It's made me slow down, take notice of things. Taking notice in this way is good for me, because I spent a lot of time being in a great hurry. So I think it's relaxed me more.
I've always been a quirky one, you know, I shave my hair, I dye crazy colors. And so being barefoot has just been another aspect of just sort of presenting myself to the world, sort of take me as I am.
I wouldn't say it has in a major way. I've always been a very kind of do your own kind of thing, go your own way kind of person. So basically I'm used to having to live with a lot of attention from strangers. I guess like a lot of the challenges barefooters face and a lot of the kind of attitude adjustment that a lot of barefooters have to go to aren't things that really apply to me, because I'd already sort of had to do the hard work of self-acceptance and building my own confidence because of the other things that are part of me. It's given me more energy, which kind of has a knock-on effect on the rest of my life. Like, I actively enjoy sort of being on my feet now. Walking isn't just a way of getting from A to B, it's an experience, so I'm a bit more active and healthy. But I wouldn't say there's been any particularly major impact. No.
I suppose it has, because the more confident I am about doing this, the more confident I am about being myself in any other regard, and I don't have to be deferential to anybody who hasn't earned that from me, and it's great. And as I say, people see me doing my own thing, they see me confident and they think, right, okay, this person knows what they're doing, they're happy, they're comfortable and they're confident, and that's great.